So what's up? Official greetings to everyone. Let's get started. Let me remind you of the principles once again. It's all very simple. The practice of slowing down, lying on the floor. We do a large number of repetitions of very simple basic patterns. The idea is that each time we recreate repetitions, we can track which tensions we can release from this fragment, this movement, or any muscular holds or tensions. We can also observe from the perspective of support, how we can refine this support. On the contrary, we can refine the chain of this pattern itself, make it more detailed and attentive, and so on. And be in dialogue again with our own attention, with our possible reactions, and so forth. Let's begin. Today we'll start lying on the floor right away. Everything will be easy. Immediately allow your legs to bend and place your palms on your stomach. And for a while, just lie there, observing which parts of the body are in contact with the floor. And let the palms listen to the breath in the abdominal area. And observe how, on the inhale, the front wall of the abdomen rises, and on the exhale, the front wall of the abdomen falls. And without losing this attention to the body's contact with the floor, observe what minimal tensions in the abdomen might be hindering this rising of the abdomen on the inhale. And try, through your attentive observation, to track what might be preventing the abdomen from filling on the inhale, and what might be hindering it from deflating on the exhale. Simply through your attention and observation, dissolve these obstacles. So that during the inhale, there are no tensions or strains, and the front wall of the abdomen simply inflates calmly, allowing the internal organs to settle in. And at the moment of exhale, no patterns, reflexes, or any clamps or contractions arise. And by continuing to maintain attention on the breath, we track how our head sinks into the floor. And allow your head to truly fall into the support. And simultaneously, as we observe the breath and how our head sinks into the surface, we observe the breath and how our head sinks into the surface, tracking whether any reactions occur in the leg muscles. Whether there is any tension, holding in the thighs, holding the legs just in case. And we try, our breath is free, raising the front surface of the abdomen and freely lowering it so to the floor. The head sinks, and at the same time, the right foot sinks into the floor and the left foot sinks into the floor. These are already 4 areas of observation for breathing. On the inhale, the lower abdomen fills freely without obstacles. On the exhale, it freely lowers without obstacles. The left foot sinks into the floor, the right foot sinks into the floor, and the head sinks into the floor. And simultaneously with this, we track with attention where else there are tensions in the body. What do we begin to notice? And further, if we notice any tension, any micro-tension throughout the body, can we release it through breathing? The sinking of the head into the floor, the right foot into the floor, the left foot into the floor. If we continue to use this metaphor of dissolving, can we dissolve it through inhalation and exhalation, this micro-tension, either by spreading it to the head area, or by letting it pass into the left leg through the left foot, and into the right leg through the right foot. and gently allow the right leg to lift. The right foot lifts off the floor. And the palms continue to observe the breathing in the abdomen and freely around the hip joint. And now very gently we begin to direct the right knee in a clockwise motion with minimal rotation. Just continue to allow the right knee joint to rotate, monitoring what is happening with the right hip joint. And now we monitor whether we have lost this dropping of the head to the floor and whether our left foot continues to sink into the floor. And most importantly, whether any disturbances are beginning to occur in the breathing. And we continue this clockwise rotation of the right knee joint. And we monitor whether the front wall of the abdomen continues to calmly rise on the inhale and fall on the exhale. If we suddenly feel any tension in the abdomen, any possible strain, we try to neutralize this tension with each subsequent repetition of the rotation in the knee joint, in the hip joint, and with each subsequent repetition of inhalation and exhalation. And simultaneously, we monitor whether there is any microholding in the cervical region. Again, consider that instead of creating this microholding in the neck, just in case, or simply as a habit, replace it with letting the head fall to the floor and the left foot fall to the floor, along with inhalation and exhalation, and refining the hip joint of the right leg. And we continue this slight rotation at the very beginning of our practice. We clarify the breath constantly scans us for any additional tension. For example, in the area of the left leg, do we really feel the left foot sinking into the floor? Or do we start to control, for example, the left foot and the entire left leg in the ankle area, or in the area of the left thigh? Perhaps we are actually supporting the left shin on a micro level instead of allowing it to sink into the left foot. Maybe we actually have a tendency to hold our breath, especially when the right leg is working. Perhaps we have a tendency to support the work of the legs with our neck. And we try to track all these tendencies and any others and let them go again through the head falling to the floor, through breathing, through the left foot sinking into the floor, and through the rotation of the right hip joint. Minimal circles clockwise. And a little more attention to the left ankle. The left shin, let the left shin sink into the left foot in the same way. And the left foot sinks into the floor. Allow yourself not to hold the left shin. We continue. The left shin sinks into the left foot sinks into the floor. The head sinks into the floor. No tension on the inhale, no tension on the exhale. We begin to track what is happening with the right thigh. And in the same way we intensify our attention, we heighten our vigilance. To what extent are we truly making this movement in the hip joint without involving the outer surface of the right thigh? In other words, we allow the right leg, the right thigh to sink into the projection of the abdominal wall. Can we support the right leg even less with our muscles, while still allowing the clockwise rotation to continue? And what if with each of these clockwise turns we can release something more in the muscles of the right leg, so that the right thigh and right knee come slightly closer to the floor? Without holding the breath, either on the inhale or the exhale, without engaging the muscles around the neck, without engaging the muscles around the left shin. Continue to breathe and observe. And gently invite the sacrum into the area of our attention. And just as we say that instead of holding something in the neck, we shift our attention to letting the head sink into the floor. Similarly, in the area of the sacrum, instead of holding something in the lower back, let's try to replace this holding in the lumbar region with letting the sacrum sink into the support. The left foot sinks into the support. The left shin sinks into the left foot. The sacrum sinks into the support. The head sinks into the support. The cervical region relaxes. The lumbar region relaxes. The external muscles of the right leg relax. A slight rotation occurs in the right knee joint. The rotation itself happens in the right hip joint. And when the number 3 is called, we will change the direction of rotation counterclockwise. And we will think about the fact that at the moment when the redirection of rotation occurs, we will not experience any delay in breathing. There will be no additional tension in the neck, no tension in the left ankle, and no tension in the right thigh. 1. When the number 1 is called, we directly track that we are further refining our support, sinking into the sacrum, the back of the head, and the left foot. 2. An attention is present, breathing is present. And now when the next number is called, we will not lose our breath, attention, or support. 3. And we change the direction of rotation of the right hip joint and track how the right knee moves in space as a result. How else can we, through this rotation in the hip joint, grind down some tension in the right thigh, or perhaps in the abdominal area, or maybe in the pelvic area where some muscles want to hold and control this movement, and try to distribute this desire for control and holding by letting it flow through the sacrum and rotating in the hip joint. And again, we track how much we are not holding ourselves with the cervical spine. Instead of holding ourselves in the neck, collapsing into the back of the head. And what about the breathing? Again, are we starting to hold our breath just in case? Are we starting to reduce the depth of the inhale and the depth of the exhale? Scan with your attention, continue rotating counterclockwise. Refining the right hip joint, releasing the right thigh. If suddenly we start to feel an accumulation of some tension in the pelvic area, or maybe the lower back starts to get affected, or we feel some tightness around the hip joint, we transfer this to the sacrum area, rotations and breathing. Let the sacrum release this tension, let the action itself release this tension, and let the breath release this tension. What about the cervical spine? What about the left shin? What about the left foot? What about the attention more specifically? And gently release the rotation. And we simply observe how the left hip causes the left leg to move towards the abdomen. And what hinders this process? Again, it might be something in the lower back. Some muscles around the back start to pull us in, hold us around the hip. Perhaps the front wall of the abdomen. The abs start to tense up somehow. And again, with our attention, breathing, and support, we dissolve these tensions. What if gravity could face no obstacles, and the right hip and shin can freely move towards the abdomen, not by pulling or forcing it, but simply by gradually letting go of everything unnecessary. I will count from 1 to 7. As these numbers are spoken, imagine that with the contact of the sacrum with the floor, the right hip continues to sink towards the abdomen. releasing the hip joint, the outer muscles, and any internal tensions. The contact of the sacrum with the floor does not decrease. 1. The right hip under gravity sinks towards the abdomen, continues to sink. 2. 3. And the neck does not hold back this process. 4. 5. And let's try to track where the tension is starting to arise in the arm area. 6. In the shoulder girdle area. 7. And without losing the contact of the sacrum with the floor, palms on the front surface of the abdomen. The neck does not tense. We begin to lengthen the leg from the pelvis, as detailed as possible, and allow the foot to touch the floor. And the foot slides. And in this lengthening of the leg, we check the free alignment of the joints. The knee slides, the hip joint rotates, the ankle of gravity. When the right leg is straightened, let's ensure that we have not lost the contact of the sacrum with the floor. And instead of this potential arching in the lumbar region, the sacrum continues to sink down. And instead of potential tension in the cervical region, the back of the head continues to sink into the floor. And the palms on the lower surface of the abdomen, they ensure that the inhalation is not hindered by the tension of the external muscles on the front surface of the abdomen. And similarly, the exhalation is not hindered. The palms convey calmness to these external abdominal muscles through some tension. Social compression. The left leg is bent, the right leg is straight, and despite the right leg being straightened, it continues to extend and flow out from the pelvis. That is, the right leg is not abandoned or relaxed, but freely creates this internal direction from the sacrum through the hip joint, through the knee joint, through the ankle, through the left foot, further away from the pelvis. And the palms melt away any tension held on the front surface of the abdomen. The left foot sinks into the floor. The head sinks into the floor. The sacrum sinks into the floor. And as the right leg continues to flow out from the pelvis, we track what is happening with the muscles of the left thigh and left shin. And, maintaining the contact of the left foot on the floor, how can we more precisely position the left ankle over the foot so that the involvement of the external muscles is minimal in this position? And simultaneously, how can we more accurately align the left ankle with the left thigh so that the tension in the left thigh is minimal, or the tension in the pelvic area is minimal? The sacrum continues to sink into the floor. The right leg continues to flow out from the floor. The palms constantly monitor how much we are not holding the front surface of the abdomen, how much we allow this wall to be freely free and elastic. And on the inhale, so that the internal organs fill exactly as much space as they need, exactly the volume they require. And on the exhale, no tension remains in the lower abdomen. The organs freely move towards the diaphragm, and the lower abdomen freely sagged. And again, all these processes are not controlled by the cervical spine. Instead of the cervical spine, the back of the head sinks into the floor. And gently, on the count of 2, the right leg will begin to slide back, so that the right foot ends up on the floor. 1. There is support. The right leg is flowing. There is a relationship between the left ankle, the left shin, and left thigh. The back of the head is on the floor, and there is breathing. And without interrupting all these processes, 2, the right leg begins to bend at the knee joint. The fasciae are sliding. And we directly monitor whether the left thigh starts to tense from this process. Are we losing the sinking of the left shin into the left foot? Or on the contrary, do we suddenly have a retention of the left ankle for some reason? Is tension starting to accumulate around the neck? Is our breathing starting to hold? And we allow the right foot to slightly lift off the floor and press the right foot down. And again, both feet sink into the floor. The sacrum sinks into the floor. The back of the head sinks into the floor. And the palms monitor our breathing. Simply track with your attention if there is any difference between the right side and the left side. There might be, there might not be. Just a question to your own breathing. What's going on with our lumbar region? What's going on with our cervical region? Now, carefully on the count of 2, we will begin the shoulder girdle. Extension from the pelvis. That is, we will start to move the shoulders and the entire line between the right and left shoulder away from the sacrum, away from the pelvis. But for now, our weight is sinking into the left foot, the right foot, the sacrum, the back of the head, breathing. The left ankle is sinking into the floor. The right ankle is sinking into the floor. And we clarify the relationship of the right thigh and the left, and right shin, and left shin, and left thigh. And what is the more optimal positioning and relationship of the shin, thigh, and thigh relative to the shin on the right and left side? We truly trust our sensations. That is, the more correct relationship is the one in which we experience less tension. This is a matter of the depth of our attention. We allow the legs to sink even more into the sacrum and the foot. And what is the relationship between the thigh and the shin, perhaps? Perhaps it can further facilitate this process. Not holding anything in the thigh, not holding anything in the calf muscle, in the shin, around the knee joint, but allowing it to sink into the right foot and sacrum, into the left foot and sacrum. And 1, support on the floor, attention, breathing. And 2, and directly relying on both feet and the sacrum, we begin to crawl out of the pelvis with the shoulder girdle. By all available means, we directly lift the shoulders, move the shoulders away, lift the back of the head, move the back of the head away. This is such an endless dynamic process. And every time we lift the shoulders or perform some similar action, we track how much we maintain contact with the floor, how much we continue to fall with the shin into the foot, how much we avoid compression around the knee joints, and how much we avoid holding in the hip on both the right and left sides. Like a little turtle, with a turtle-like movement, the shoulder girdle begins to crawl out from the sacrum. And we perceive this as a dynamic procedural action. And all this is to refine the sacrum on the floor and the sinking of the sacrum into the floor, to refine the left foot, the right foot, and the relationship between the shin and the thigh on the right side and in the left leg. And numbers from 1 to 10 will be heard. This is the temporary space to free the shoulder girdle as far as possible from the pelvis. 1, and we continue to turtle along. 2, and we monitor that in this process there is no compression in the thigh, in the shin. 3, 4, and we monitor in the process of our turtling whether there is any tension in the abdomen. How much the palms, again, monitor this unobstructed rising of the abdomen on the inhale and the falling of the abdomen on the exhale. 5, 6, the sacrum sinks into the floor, the feet sink into the floor, instead of holding the neck and the back of the head. 7, and 3 more. Move the shoulders. As far away from the back of the head as possible, start pressing the elbows into the floor. By lifting yourself with the elbows off the floor, the shoulders crawl even further away from the sacrum. 8, 9, and 10. Release the shoulder girdle onto the floor and observe the sacrum sinks into the floor and the shoulder girdle sinks into the floor. And any potential tension in the lumbar region is distributed between these two sinkings of the shoulder girdle into the floor and the sacrum into the floor. As soon as there is any tendency in the lumbar region to hold tension, we disperse this tendency through the shoulder girdle and the sacrum. As an image, we can imagine it as if water has spilled on the floor, and we start spreading this water towards the edges, along the baseboards. And one baseboard is the shoulder girdle, and the other baseboard is the sacrum. And instead of this water accumulating somewhere in the center, instead of tension accumulating in the lower back, in the lumbar region, we disperse this water. This tension with our attention to the sacrum area and the shoulder girdle area. And this will create a gentle arch, a slight natural curve in the lumbar region. And gravity. The relationship between this curve and gravity slowly removes this tension to the shoulder girdle area, from there to the floor, further out of the body and into the sacrum area, and from there further out of the body to the floor. If we continue this imagery, this series of images, we can imagine that a kind of puddle forms around the shoulder girdle, and from the sacrum, a puddle also begins to spread. And our virtual puddles of tension flow out of the body through the shoulder girdle and the sacrum. And we track what is happening in the area of the left foot, the right foot, and let virtual puddles of tension also form in the area of the left foot and the right foot, due to the fact that tension flows out of the body into the floor from the knee joint through the left shin and left foot, and through the right knee joint, through the right shin, right calf muscle, through the right ankle, right foot. The tension also does not linger in the body, it flows out. We are lying in continuous virtual puddles around the left foot, right foot, sacrum, and shoulder girdle. And let's also try to track that there is no holding around the biceps and triceps in the right and left arm. Let's see if we are maintaining any tension in the arm muscles, just in case. And we also try to surrender to gravity. The left arm surrenders to gravity, the right arm surrenders to gravity. And on the count of 2, the left knee joint will lift off the floor. The left knee will move towards the left shoulder. 1. And when the number 1 is called, we observe that all our supports, all these virtual puddles, the release of tension is there, and attention is there, and breathing is there. The front surface of the abdomen inflates on the inhale and deflates on the exhale. And without losing all of this, without canceling 2, the left knee joint, through sliding, the left hip joint, uni, gently moves towards the left shoulder. The left foot lifts off the floor, and we sink into this position. And we observe the right foot sinks into the floor. The right shin sinks into the floor. The sacrum sinks into the floor. We are constantly in a situation of clarification. Yes, this micro movement, micro search for the relationship between the right thigh and the right shin. The back of the head sinks into the floor. The shoulder girdle sinks into the floor. And the left leg, left thigh, left shin also sink into the floor. And the palms monitor how much we are not holding ourselves during the inhale and exhale. That is, the palms are constantly swaying on these waves of breathing. And we gently begin to rotate the left knee, but now counterclockwise. These micro movements, micro provocations for the body, are to track whether this micro movement affects the holding in the right shin, in the right thigh. Isn't the lower back starting to cramp? Isn't tension beginning to accumulate? Again, we disperse this tension, losing water, along the baseboards in our room, that is, into the sacrum area and the shoulder girdle area. Isn't the cervical region getting involved again? And instead of the cervical region, the shoulder girdle, the back of the head, breathing. Isn't tension accumulating in the pelvic area? Could it be that the buttocks or lower back or the beginning of the thigh is starting to accumulate tension? And again, through the descent of the sacrum to the floor, let this tension be released through the sacrum, once again, into our virtual puddle of tension drainage. And in the left leg itself, we track what is happening. To what extent are we performing this rotation using the thigh muscles and holding the calf muscle? And to what extent can we perform this rotation using the left hip joint? The sacrum sinks into the floor. The left hip joint rotates. And we scan with our attention to see what is hindering this process. The sacrum, the sinking of the sacrum into the floor, and the free gliding of the left hip joint. And again, with our attention, we can think about dissolving these tensions, these holdings, leaving only the free rotation of the left hip joint and the sacrum. Rotation counterclockwise. And there is no compression or any additional holding in the internal organs of the abdomen. Instead, there is a free inhale, a free exhale. And again, this is not as trivial a combination as it might seem. How truly do we achieve a full inhale while the left leg is working? How truly do we achieve a calm, detailed exhale rather than jerky movements while the leg is working? How truly can we, amidst this rotation, avoid accumulating tension in the left buttock, not overworking the left buttock, but instead imparting it with qualities of sliding, conductivity? That is, not to carry reservoirs of tension and strain in the form of overworked muscles, but rather to develop this quality in the muscles so that when needed, it provides us with strength and action, but when it is not necessary, it remains in a calm, conductive, and allowing state. And all these words are spoken while the rotation continues. And we directly distribute our weight and attention between the back of the head, shoulder girdle, right foot, sacrum, left hip joint, lumbar region, cervical region, the process of inhalation, and the process of exhalation. And along with this rotation, we observe that the shoulder girdle sinks into the floor. We observe whether there is any stage of the knee joint position in this rotation, a desire for the shoulder girdle to slightly lift off the floor. If this tendency arises, we try to replace it with a tendency for the shoulder girdle to sink into the floor, but not reducing the breath. What mass, what can be focused on in the body against the background of this micro movement, of the left knee rotating counterclockwise? And when the number 2 is announced, we will change the direction of movement. 1. The right foot sinks into the floor, the sacrum sinks into the floor. There is a constant micro adjustment in the relationship between the right shin and the right thigh. The left hip joint is free, breathing is free. The shoulder girdle sinks into the floor, the back of the head sinks into the floor. Free neck, free lower back. And without canceling these processes, without canceling all these nuances, 2, we change the direction of movement, of rotation. And again, we check at which phase there might be a tendency to tense the neck. It picks up tension in the cervical region, again, as there might be a certain habit from the vertical position, from upright walking, and generally from vertical existence relative to support and gravity. And now we try in a lying position to review, to refine, some of our basic patterned habits. Or maybe now the right leg starts to control the rotation process in the left leg. Perhaps at some phase of rotation, the right thigh begins to tighten, or the right calf starts to tighten. Continuing these micro rotations, we track all these nuances. And at the moment when our attention catches onto something, tracks it, we try in the next repetition to offer ourselves a different experience, a different cause and effect relationship. And it's not necessary that everything will immediately relax in the next repetition. That's precisely why we increase the number of repetitions to a conditional infinity, a chiara, so that each time we continue this process of refinement, the process of tracking any inaccuracies, imprecisions, and the process of offering our nervous system, our psychophysics, a different alternative experience. And further, through subsequent repetitions, there is the opportunity to retrain, the opportunity to accept this offer, or at the very least, to release these tensions in the body that arise due to this less accurate connection in this pattern, less accurate habit, or at the very least, to track that we actually have these tensions and to be more attentive to them. And again, all these words sound quite benevolent. Someone might already be doing this action right now. Damn, my lower back hurts unbearably, or my neck is tense, or actually the left hip is already so tense that it starts to cramp. And again, it's all like discovering the truth about yourself through micro movements in the left knee. And yet, we try to stay in dialogue, to continue this dialogue with our own tensions, with our own holdings. And to grind down, to release this holding through action, through support, through attention and breathing. And the puddle of tension release is there to help us. Remember, a puddle spreads in the back of the head. This puddle is not inside the body, but outside. That is, we release this tension outward. In the sacrum area, this tension is released, this puddle spreads. And again, this tension is not released through the body. It is released from the body. The right foot, a puddle of tension release. And again, not inside the foot, but outside. And dissolution inside the abdomen through breathing. And we spread this water along the baseboards to the sacral area, to the shoulder girdle area. And in the same way, we imagine that if the neck is like the same spilled water in the room, then any tension in this cervical area, we start to spread along the baseboards in the same way. Only here, the baseboards are the back of the head and the shoulder girdle. And now at any moment, we can change the direction of a rotation of the left hip joint. And at the moment when we change the rotation of the left hip joint, we ensure that we do not lose all these supports, breathing and attention. That is, the change of direction occurs not in a place, but together with support, breathing and attention. And we continue this action, change direction at any moment. And ensure that the neck does not start to tense up, the lower back does not start to tense up. And while continuing to change the direction of movements, continuing to monitor the breathing, we observe how much the left leg truly sinks, approaches the floor, approaches the abdominal wall. To what extent we do not cancel out gravity with this rotation. And let's think directly about how the left thigh, left calf, left shin, with each of these rotation cycles, slightly by some micro, perhaps barely noticeable, barely perceptible, and generally invisible from the outside. Distances, nevertheless, approaches towards the abdomen. Not because we are forcing this process, not because we are making this process happen, not because we are forcing the external muscles to press the left leg to the floor, but on the contrary, due to the fact that there is gravity, we are rather more relaxing the muscles of the left leg. And the numbers from 1 to 10 will be heard. We continue to change the direction in the left hip joint. And these 10 numbers are meant to allow the left leg to sink even more towards the floor, without canceling the action, without canceling all the previous areas of attention, all of our puddles, relaxations, tensions, breathing, dissolutions. 1. And indeed, sink is the right word. Let the left thigh, the left shin sink towards the floor. 2. 3. And let this sinking of the left leg into the floor not cancel the breathing. 4. The front wall of the abdomen also rises freely during inhalation and falls just as freely during exhalation. 5. And again, it sounds simple, but it may not be simple at all in practice. 6. The place of the thigh muscles, hip joints. 7. How much the right leg does not control this process, but continues to refine its own relationship between the shin and the thigh, sinking into the sacrum and the right foot. 7. 8. What else can we refine in these remaining 2 counts? 9. The place of holding in the neck, the spreading of water along the baseboards to the area of the occiput and shoulder girdle. 10. And release the rotation. Sometimes, even in a static form, it just continues to flow away, continues to sink. And continuing to allow the left leg to sink into the floor, rather than accumulating any holding around the left hip joint. On the count of 2, the right foot will slightly lift off the floor. And when the right foot slightly lifts off the floor, let's think about ensuring that tension does not arise in the abdominal area. That is, the palm will be free, again, when swaying with the waves of breathing. 1. And on the count of 1, there is no tension in the lower back or neck. 2. And the right foot slightly lifted off the floor. And on the count of 2, the back of the head will slightly lift off the floor. And at the moment, when the back of the head lifts off the floor again, no additional tension will arise in the neck, at least in our ideally utopian world. And the breathing in the abdominal area will not be interrupted or reduced. 2, and the back of the head slightly lifts off the floor. And we monitor how much we do not start lifting the legs off the floor. The left thigh, left shin continue to sink towards the abdomen. The right foot is slightly above the floor. The sacrum is on the floor. Now we gently allow the back of the head to lift towards the crown, as if there were some liquid in our head, it would flow towards the sacrum. And we perceive this process not as static, but constantly refine the position of the back of the head. How else can we position the back of the head in space so that the tension in the neck is minimal or completely absent? How can we maintain free breathing in the abdomen while doing this? How can we maintain the sinking of the left leg into the floor while doing this? How can we maintain the free right foot while doing this? And on the count of 2, the right leg will begin to lengthen along the floor without losing the search for the back of the head in terms of reducing tension in the neck, without losing the sinking of the left leg into the floor. 1. All processes continue. 2. And gently, the right leg slides out from the pelvis, the right foot above the floor, and the back of the head continues to search. Do not place the right heel on the floor. The left leg continues to sink. And we directly monitor that our breathing is not held, the front surface of the abdomen is not tensed. Movement in the back of the head, flowing into the sacrum. And gently, on the count of 2, the right leg will flow into the abdomen and join the left leg. 1. The back of the head searches, the sacrum sinks into the floor, the left leg sinks into the abdominal area. On the inhale, the palms inflate. On the exhale, the palms deflate. 2. And gently continuing to search with the back of the head. The right leg now sinks into the abdominal area. And on the count of 2, the left leg begins to lengthen. The left foot will be above the floor, the head above the floor. Also, what we might be experiencing now as tension, for example, in the cervical region, we allow this to flow into the sacrum and from the sacrum into the floor. 2. The left leg flows out. And we simply allow the left leg to flow out. The right foot moves towards the right shoulder. The right shin sinks into the abdomen. The right thigh sinks into the abdomen. The back of the head continues to search. And the most fundamental area, the process of practice, the moment of practice, is breathing and the cervical region. And on the count of 2, we change legs again. The left leg will bend, the right leg will extend. 2. Through sliding in the hip joints, through sliding in the knees, the head above the floor. Feet above the floor. 1. Sacrum to the floor, back to the occiput. 2. And the left leg extends, the right leg gathers. And we track how much the left leg continues to flow out of the pelvis. How much the occiput continues to seek. The alignment in which the neck is relieved. 2. Oops. Now change on your own. One leg flows out of the pelvis, the other leg flows towards the abdomen. And numbers from 1 to 10 will be heard. The heels do not touch the floor. And during these 10 counts, we will place the occiput as far as possible from the shoulders, from the shoulder girdle. 1. 2. It's not about enduring with the neck. It's about finding a more precise alignment of the occiput, shoulder girdle, and sacrum. 3. 4. 5. The legs continue to slide. 6. 7, 8. And 2 more counts, with the occiput as far as possible from the shoulder girdle. 9. 10. And the legs continue to slide from the pelvis, from the abdomen, and we ensure that the heels do not touch the floor. This is a good provocation for us in terms of observing what is happening in our lumbar region, what is happening in our cervical region, and what is happening with our abs. And we remember our image of pushing water towards the baseboards. In terms of the neck, towards the occiput, towards the shoulder girdle. In terms of the lower back, towards the sacrum, towards the shoulder girdle. The palms continue to sway with the breath. We find these internal resources, the work of the lumbar iliac muscles, free fascial gliding, the sacrum in contact with the floor, the shoulder girdle in contact with the floor, the occiput in contact with the floor, heels off the floor. This is not an exercise for the abs, it's an anti-abs exercise. Continue like this. Lengthen the legs, change so that the abs are not involved at all or are engaged minimally. We do not pay attention to the moments of redirecting movements. At the moment of redirection, do we experience any compression in the abdomen? Do we experience any breath holding? Do we experience any tension in the cervical or lumbar region? We directly track what habits might arise, or what habits already exist, or any connections, for example, changing leg movements by slightly holding the neck, or this habit of working the legs using the lower back, or the habit of working the legs with a tense abdomen, with such reduced breathing. And through this repetition, We try to return a free lower back, return a free neck, return free breathing to ourselves. The practice of returning freedom. And again, it's easy to talk about it. Some might again experience all these reactions, many of which are emotional. It's already unbearable in the core, unbearable in the hip joints. Everything is tense. The back is shaking. Before that, the neck was shaking. But again, support gravity and internal connections. And it's not about canceling your own tension reactions, not about tattooing over them. Gradually being in dialogue with them, in contact, and offering yourself some alternative experience and alternative habits. And again, numbers from 1 to 10 will be heard. When the numbers from 1 to 10 are heard, it's our time to move the feet towards the ceiling. That is, at the moment when the number 10 is heard, the legs will rise upwards, not along the floor, but perpendicular to the floor, still maintaining this idea of sliding. And once again, this is not a practice for acquiring six-pack abs. It's a practice for gaining freedom and internal connections, support, and gravity. 1, 2. Maintain the sliding. 3. Instead of the lower back, neck, sacrum, shoulder girdle, occiput. 4. The legs gently begin to extend towards the ceiling. Let us count together from 5 to 10, step by step. First, we have 5, then 6, followed by 7. Next is 8, after that 9, and finally, we reach 10. And continue. The sliding in the legs, sink into the sacrum, shoulder girdle, occiput. I observe, we track in this position relative to gravity what is happening. To what extent our breathing is not interrupted. To what extent we can allow these legs to lengthen, specifically to slide, due to internal connections and free fascia. We can always take this image of the leg flowing out of the pelvis. To what extent the external muscles are involved in this process, for example, the thigh muscles. If today I feel that being completely vertical is not quite for me, I can choose a slight angle for myself and work at this angle. And again, we check how much the palms have not stopped rocking on the stomach, how much the cervical region has not shriveled, and the lumbar region has not compressed. And continuing this action, on the count of 2, the back of the head is again raised from the floor. 1, 2, and the back of the head is above the floor. And again, not a static form, but we start to find the position of the back of the head in space, where the tension in the cervical region is minimal. And we monitor how much the shoulder girdle does not want to lift off the surface, how much we continue to sink the shoulder girdle into the floor, and how much we continue to sink the sacrum into the floor. How much we haven't turned what is happening now into just physical exercise or a survival practice to simply endure, because it's already unbearable in the back, in the legs. How much we can truly recreate this movement in detail each time. From the perspective of releasing certain tensions and holds, from the perspective of refining support, from the perspective of refining your interaction with gravity, from the perspective of refining certain internal connections, from the perspective of contact with your emotions and reactions. And carefully, as far back as possible, return the back of the head to the floor as far away from the shoulder girdle as possible. And briefly stop the sliding in the legs, both feet above the floor. And just listen to the echo of the previous actions. What about the breathing? How much does the right leg sink into the floor? How much does the left leg sink into the floor? How much are we just holding and enduring? Between the sacrum and the hip joints, let any tension dissolve and be released from the body, even if only at the level of an idea. Everything that we can currently hold with the buttock, thigh, and calf muscle, let it sink into the sacrum and disperse outward through the free hip joint. And again, beneath us is this puddle, a virtual puddle of tension release. The palms freely rise up, freely fall down. The shoulder girdle, the back of the head, free breathing. Numbers from 1 to 10 will be sounded. And again, these 10 counts, but now to place both feet on the floor as thoroughly as possible. That is, to go through this path as thoroughly as possible, without losing the sacrum, without losing the shoulder girdle, the back of the head, the neck, the lower back, the hip joints, breathing and attention. 1. The foot begins its path towards the floor, going through it as thoroughly as possible. 2. 3. What tensions can we track and release? 4. How can we interact even more precisely with support and gravity? 5. How can we make some internal connections, such as muscles and other internal connections? For example, more detailed. 6. 7. What's happening with the breathing and palms? 8. 9. 10. Both feet sink into the floor. And we directly track what's happening with our breathing, what's happening with our palms on the stomach, what's happening with the back of the head, what's happening with the shoulders, the sacrum, the right foot, the left foot. To what extent are we not holding ourselves with the hips, calves, and shins? Instead, the sacrum into the floor, the left foot into the floor. From the relationship of the left shin and left thigh, the right foot into the floor, the sacrum into the floor, and the relationship of the right shin, right thigh. Instead of engaging the lower back, precise sinking of the shoulder girdle into the floor and precise sinking of the sacrum into the floor. Instead of engaging the neck, precise sinking of the back of the head into the floor and precise sinking of the shoulder girdle into the floor. And we continue to observe. And again, as a poetic image, what if we can dissolve our entire selves and transform our entire selves into these puddles, completely flowing into a puddle in the area of the back of the head, a puddle in the area of the sacrum, a puddle in the area of the shoulder girdle, a puddle in the area of the right foot, a puddle in the area of the left foot. The palms calmly rise up, calmly descend down. And we carefully add the area of working attention to the fingerprints of the hands. And beyond the fingerprints of the hands, we begin to extend the arms upward, sinking ourselves into the right shoulder and the left shoulder. And we seek this duality. Beyond the fingerprints of the hands, we extend ourselves to the ceiling, while through the shoulder joints, we sink downward. All the time, this dialogue. The arms extend upward, and the arms extend downward. When we have engaged the arms, we check if the legs have also engaged. Again, is there any tension arising in the legs? Does this habit of controlling the hands with the legs arise? What is happening with our cervical region, and what about the lumbar region? What about this memory of the palm on the abdomen? To what extent does this free breathing continue to sway there? And gently, we begin to direct the thumbs towards the center. A gentle spiral, so that the palms face outward, and we try not to twist the elbows, but to rotate, to glide precisely in the shoulder joints. And gently, following the thumbs, we begin to move the hands away from the center. And again, we do not twist the wrists, do not twist the elbows, allowing ourselves to glide in the shoulders. Breathing is not cancelled. The thighs, calves, sacrum, hip joints, and feet seek precise interaction. Again, thumbs to the center, and palms outward, and thumbs inward, and palms outward from the side of the head, with the palm more towards the back of the head, and thumbs inward, palms outward, and thumbs inward, palms behind the head. And we continue. Palms outward in one direction, palms outward in the other. And we monitor how at this moment we do not twist the wrist, do not twist the elbows, and this action truly occurs in the shoulder joints. How we do not cancel breathing in the process. How we do not cancel this duality in the process. We continue to flow with our hands towards the ceiling, following the fingerprints. And in the same way, flow with our hands towards the floor, into the shoulder joints. Thumbs inward, thumbs outward, constantly opening up our shoulder girdle, releasing it. Breathing is present, the back of the head is present, the shoulder girdle is present, the sacrum is present, the right foot is present, the left foot is present. All of this sinks into the floor. And the numbers from 1 to 10 will sound. And over these 10 numbers, in the most detailed and evolutionary way, we will reach the maximum speed of rotation in the hands. And again, the maximum speed is not from the perspective of some external comparative indicators, but the maximum speed at which I feel efficiency, at which I feel that I can continue to work with my attention. And with this recreation and refinement of the pattern, we flow into the sacrum, flow into the shoulder girdle, flow into the left and right feet, flow, and off we go. Acceleration, 1, 2. Breathing is not reduced. 3. When accelerating, to what extent do we not start tucking in the legs? 4. To what extent do we not twist the wrists and elbows? 5. To what extent do we continue to lengthen ourselves towards the ceiling with our fingertips? 6. To what extent do we simultaneously continue to sink into the shoulder joints? 7. 8. To what extent does tension not accumulate in the neck, and to what extent do we continue to push water along the baseboards? 9. To what extent have we not lost contact of the sacrum with the floor? 10. And we continue to remain at this conditional maximum speed. Again, the maximum speed for this specific moment or this particular movement. And we track what we can release in terms of holds in this repetition. What can we refine in terms of support and gravity in the body? How can we make this pattern more precise? How can we refine it? What is happening with our emotional reactions, our emotional background? What is happening with our attention? And when the number 2 is announced, without losing this inward-outward rotation, the fingertips will go behind the crown of the head. That is, the hands will go behind the head, but without touching the floor. 1, 2. Maximum detailed sliding. Rotation inward, rotation outward. And in the context of the hands starting to move behind the head, to what extent do we not start controlling this with our legs? To what extent do we not reduce our breathing? What is happening in our lower back? What is happening in our neck? Let this rotation of the hands be a gentle provocation for the lower back, neck, legs, breathing, and attention. And we continue this rotation in the hands. Both rotation and sliding simultaneously, and let one action not cancel out the other. Reconnect. And at some point, the hands will end up behind the head along the floor, and without touching the floor, we continue this rotation. Remember, we do not twist the wrists, we do not twist the elbows. This is a rotation in the shoulder girdle. The sacrum sinks into the floor. The back of the head sinks into the floor. The feet sink into the floor. These virtual pools of tension release. The memory of the palms tracks and monitors free breathing. To what extent we are not on tense abs, not on reduced breathing. Hands behind the head, hands continue to flow out of the shoulders, flow into the shoulders, and continue to rotate inward and outward in the shoulder joints, not in the wrists, not in the elbows. And on the count of 2, the hands will go up again. Vertical position, 1, 2. Without straining the neck, without straining the lower back, without transferring the rotation to the elbows, wrists. The hands reach the ceiling. And on the count of 2, the hands will go down towards the feet, maintaining this maximum inward-outward rotation at maximum amplitude, at maximum speed. 1. The back of the head, shoulder girdle, sacrum, feet, lower back, neck, breathing, attention, everything is present. 2. Gravity is present, support is present. The release of tension is present. Breathing is present. Clarification of connection is present. And we do not place the hands on the floor, along the floor. In the shoulder joints, there is rotation. From the fingertips, the hands flow out of the shoulders and simultaneously flow into the shoulders, the back of the head, the sacrum. And without stopping the rotation in the shoulder joints, on the count of 2, the back of the head will lift off the floor. 1. The sacrum flows into the floor. 2. And we check again that this is not a static position for the back of the head. It's always a search. Breathing is not held. The thighs are not involved in this. The calves are not involved. And on the count of 2, both feet will lift off the floor. 1, 2. The hands rotate. The back of the head searches for a more precise position in space. The thighs and shins of the right and left leg sink into the surface of the abdomen. Gravity helps. Support helps. Breathing attention helps. Internal connections help. A clear dialogue with your emotional reactions helps. And on the count of 2, the left leg begins to lengthen. 2. The hands rotate back and forth. And switch, the right leg replaces the left. Rotation in the shoulder joints, the back of the head searches. And we continue back and forth. And carefully the feet go towards the ceiling, without losing this quality of sliding, without losing the rotation in the hands, without losing the search in the back of the head. Support helps, the sacrum helps. And on the count of 2, the hands go to the ceiling, the back of the head above the floor. 2. The legs slide. The back of the head above the head. Hands inward, outward, legs towards you, away from you. And slowly place the back of the head on the floor. And slowly release the rotation in the hands. The fingerprints simply face the ceiling. And carefully shift, bend both legs. And very precisely, lower the arms along the body. And now we allow the hands to rest on the floor. Do not tense the neck, do not tense the lower back. And very precisely, both feet on the floor. Do not tense the neck, do not tense the lower back. Do not squeeze the thighs and calves. And allow our last 10 counts. In 10 counts, very precisely, let the legs flow out of the pelvis. 1, 2. Sliding in the knee, rotation in the hip joint. 3, 4. Relaxed lower back, relaxed neck. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Done. And here, instead of arching the lower back and neck, press the back of the head to the floor, the shoulder girdle to the floor, the sacrum to the floor, and return the palms to the abdomen, to the lower abdomen. Just listen to the echo from the practice. There is support, there is gravity. A virtual puddle of releasing tensions. There is breathing, there is attention. And carefully move to any side. Stay on the side for a little while and observe yourself in relation to the side position, gravity, support. Carefully and thoroughly take a seated position. Just invite this beginning of the vertical relationship of gravity and support. Any careful micro movements so as not to disturb the entire previous hour of experience. And slightly bolder movements. Turns, bends. Any kind of support, any movements with the hands, some everyday actions. Bending the leg. How is the neck and lower back? Raising the hand, turning the hand. How is the neck and lower back? How is the breathing, the attention? Another 5 or 6 movements. Gradually let it all go. And take with you only what makes sense to take. Everything that doesn't make sense to take, leave behind. With that, our practice has come to an end. Thank you very much.